Matters. All right, so if you're over here right now after the game, and we haven't told enough people about this, but we're trying to build our numbers up here. So just click and subscribe. We're going to do Dynamo pre- and post-game shows this year. So we're into the post-game show right now. You can add your comments or questions and or have a take on the game. I would love to read your take on the game. Let's take a look at the full-time stats here after a 1-1 draw at Shell Energy Stadium between the Dynamo and Sporting Kansas City. I think the one real general observation you make tonight is it's early in the season. You can see it. Unforced errors in this one. Decisions, circulation of the ball, not that quick. But at the end of the day, valuable points at stake and a share of the spoils for both teams. Dynamo without 5 starters tonight heading into this one. 13 shots to 6 for Sporting. They end up with 5 on target, most of those in the second half. Sporting only 2. 60% of the possession to the Dynamo, 40 for Sporting. 10 chances created to 3. 54 final third entries. 5 corners for the Dynamo. So they did ratchet it up in the second half, especially after they fell behind 1-0. But I would say that you don't want to break this down too heavily. You don't want to make too many judgments about a game at this stage of the year. 1 point for each team. I still think for the Houston Dynamo, the fact that they're continuing to get other people opportunity and minutes, the likes of 18-year-old Brooklyn Reigns to get a second game under his belt here, to get minutes for Jan Gregush, to get minutes for Sebastian Kowalczyk. I think the biggest story right now for the Houston Dynamo is the ability of Sebastian Kowalczyk now in 2 starts here and what he has shown us a lot more than we saw last year, and I think that might have to do with having a full preseason. The question is when an Amin Bassi comes back and a Hector Herrera, is he the odd man out? So a lot to be learned here from Ben Olsen. He's even admitted that, there's a lot to be learned here. Ends up in a 1-1 draw. And the Dynamo in this one responding to the Eric Tommy goal in the 61st minute. Now, the goal that Eric Tommy scored was an interesting one because it was off a clearance from the Houston Dynamo. It was a ball he picked up in midfield at speed, and he kept that speed going, running at some pretty static defenders. He got to a point in the box where there's 4 defenders around him and nobody makes a stand. Nobody makes a challenge. And then he hits a left-footed shot, and I think it kind of goes through the legs of Eric Sviatchenko. But it was very loose defending, nobody really standing up to it, kind of everybody looking at each other going, hey, are you going to pressure him or who is it? And credit Tommy for just having some directness and conviction to his game at that point. That put him up 1-0. Dynamo make changes. They bring on Gabe Siegel, the new striker. They move out. Aliou back out wide. Now, this is a spectacular goal the Dynamo put together. It's a long diagonal to the far post. Spectacular ball from Koko Karaskia, who I think the fans voted as the man of the match here tonight. But it's to Aliou Ibrahim, who's at an angle and knows that he just needs to, off his head, square this across the face of goal. And all Gabe Siegel has to do is seal off that back post. That's exactly what he does. The 2 strikers after the Koko ball link up in the air. Bang, bang, header, 1-1. Fantastic goal. I think one that's got to be up for a goal of the week based on the uniqueness of it and the fact that there was a great driven diagonal ball that led to it. Dynamo did hit a lot of long diagonals tonight. Maybe more than they would with Hector Herrera on the field. So you see them now not playing as tight as much. Not a lot of the 1-2s, the give and goes. You're seeing a lot more longer balls at this phase of the year. But again, the Dynamo are trying to create a new identity here without Hector Herrera. How can you not? Because this is a man that when he's on the field as a part of more decisions 3 times than any other player on your team. So it's a 1-1 draw. It's a good night. I wouldn't read too much into it except for the fact that Dynamo missing 5 players are having to readjust a lot of things. Ben Olsen admittedly saying, our coaching staff, we're all learning more about this. Thing is, for the Dynamo, third game in 8 days. It's Tuesday night, 9:30. It'll be the late show. So you can come home from work, take a nap for 2 hours, and then wake up for that game. Not sure what type of turnout will be down here, to be honest with you, on that night. It's a big game, though, if the Dynamo want to advance. And by the way, if they do get past St. Louis, then they will take on the defending MLS Cup champions, the Columbus Crew. Let's give you a couple updates on results from around the league, and maybe you can do that, Justin.
Yeah.
If you got them, why don't you fire them out for anybody that's listening in here. But be ready for pre- and post-game shows. By the way, I would also like to remind you, and this is a big deal to me, and I hope it is to you, but Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5, presented by the Daspit Law Firm. We are now on Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 Central Time. So we're on and drive home. Every phone call, every like, every acknowledgement, every person clicking and subscribing to the podcast of that show on Spotify, Google, Apple, all makes a difference when we go out to try and get sponsors to keep Soccer Talk on the radio. It's not always the easiest thing. We want to keep it going. I obviously am very passionate about it and soccer in Houston, so I hope you are too. Here, why don't you, Justin Finger is going to read the results here.
All right, so we started the weekend off with Columbus 1-0 over Atlanta, LAFC 2-0 or 2-1 winners over Seattle, Charlotte pulling out the win over NYCFC 1-0, Benteke with a hat trick with DC United over New England 3-1. Orlando Montreal played to a 0-0 draw. Philadelphia Union 2-2 over Chicago. Gazdag with the stoppage time goal. Austin FC losing at home 1-2 versus Minnesota. DC wins their home, FC Dallas wins their home opener 2-1 over San Jose. St. Louis and RSL played to a 0-0 or to a 1-1 draw. And Portland and Colorado have just started. There are a few matches tomorrow as well. SC Cincinnati taking on Toronto, Nashville SC taking on New York Red Bulls at 4, and then LA Galaxy Inter Miami is the primetime matchup at 8 o'clock.
All right, so that's some of the results going on. So for the Dynamo here in Houston, their next match will be on Tuesday night, 9:30, CONCACAF Champions. They're down 2-1 on aggregate in that. They'll turn it around on the weekend. They'll take on the New York Red Bulls back at home here. Listen in to Soccer Matters on ESPN 97.5, presented by the Daspit Law Firm. Also, shout out to Cactus Music. Also, shout out to Lamont Brands. By the way, you can get the T-shirts and hats there. All goes to the 501c charity, the Snowdrop Foundation. Danish Inspirations, Modern Contemporary Furniture, and Hugh O'Connor's Irish Pub out on I-10 in the Marquee Entertainment Center. All right, 1-1 here tonight. That's the final. I'm Glenn Davis. If you are on here and you are checking this out on YouTube, Soccer Matters, until Monday night at 6 o'clock Central. Thanks for tuning in. That'll do it. We do a mic drop? There. Or should I do it? Roger.